Look at this. The British people just named Donald Trump the worst thing to ever come out in America. So it's not the pandemic lockdown measures. It's not wokeness. It's not the new way of censoring people where you launder censorship through the private corporations, through social media, in order to crack down on political dissent. No. It's Donald J. Trump. Wow. It's even more astonishing when you realize how well Donald J. Trump was treating Britain during his first presidency. We're talking about a nation that recently left the European Union. I think like negotiations were still happening. And Donald Trump was like, hey, we can trade with you. Like, we can cut you a really good deal. And, if the European Union wants to tariff you, if they're not going to treat you fairly, we're going to do our best. Because, you guys are our allies, and we're going to take care of you. And when he goes and visits London, the British public spurred out that they had, like, this massive blimp that looked like a baby in order to try and make fun of him. And they called him a fascist. Which is very interesting because a couple of months later, you had a visit from a king from a Middle Eastern country with a track record at maintaining and protecting human rights in his border far lower than that of Donald J. Trump. And there was no blimp, there were no accusations of fascism, there were no claims that women's rights aren't being upheld or misogyny or anything like that. So it's very interesting to see how the British public reacted with people that were genuinely their allies and genuinely cared about their country versus other world leaders that had more strenuous relations with the United Kingdom and countries that buy up property in order to inflate its price and help create the housing crisis, which is getting worse and worse in London. But yeah, it's really interesting. The question is, who is to blame for this, right? Like, why aren't people, especially the British public, looking, where is the disinformation coming from? Where is the misinformation that is turning the public against one of their closest allies? Are the Russians behind this? Like, you would think that Vladimir Putin would be the one that's trying to foster hatred within the mind of the British public and get them to turn on Donald J. Trump, right? The elected president of the U.S. Because, like, at the end of the day, this is the problem that you're having. The United States is a democracy. Donald J. Trump didn't manage to secure victories on the battlefield in order to seize the crown from Joe Biden and became King Trump. No, he got elected by the people. In other words, he is representing the will of Americans. Right now, he even won the popular vote. And so when you're attacking him, you're attacking the people that voted for him. You're basically saying that the grievances and the ambitions and the political aspirations of the people that voted for him are the worst thing that came out from America. And in a way, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, the mentality and the way of thinking between Britain and the US is colossal. Like, Britain has completely dedicated itself to the cult of environmentalism. They have completely dedicated themselves on cracking down on human rights, such as free speech. I would like to remind you that there have been more people arrested in Britain over shit they post online than there have been people arrested in Russia. And the funny thing is, there have been protests in Russia over the government cracking down on what people post online. They weren't effective, but people actually did get out on the street and started protesting in Russia. I haven't heard of anything like that in Britain. Like, please correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't heard of a single free speech protest in the UK. And so, you can notice what happens when you can't have free speech. You can't hold your political class accountable. And then your way of life decreases. Like, I'm genuinely curious if there is a single British person that watches my channel which can tell me, you know what? My way of life has actually gone up. Like, I actually have a better lifestyle now in 2025 than I used to do in 2018 or my parents used to have. And you get to see that the way of life is going down. Meanwhile, for the Americans, the way of life is going up. And yet, you have the people whose quality of life is decreasing, and instead of looking around the world and saying, like, okay, what are Americans doing that we're not? What are other countries doing that we're not? Like, we got access to an ocean. We can literally trade with the entire world. Like, we're not a landlocked nation. Yeah, sure, we left the European Union, but like there's so many other nations we can trade with. We got the entire fucking world at our disposal. It's like the European Union should covet to trade with us. I mean, look at fucking Taiwan, right? Like, Taiwan is also an island nation. And China is not treating them fairly, but they're doing quite well. And so, like, the question has to come from the British public. It's like, what are our leaders doing wrong? Like, what is our politicians doing that's fucking up? But instead of doing that, they're like, okay, well, the Americans, the worst thing they have, Donald Trump. He doesn't like environmentalism. Okay. So as you can see, the poll here was 100,000 British people between October 24 and December 2024. So, like, this is recent. Now, again, I don't necessarily blame the public. Like, they most likely don't actually follow American news networks. They don't actually look into presidential debates and whatnot. They're probably getting their information from the BBC and the Guardian. And that's the real problem, I guess. They're the ones that are spreading the misinformation and disinformation that causes the public to look disfavorably at Donald Trump. It's not even looking disfavorably. It's like the worst thing, right? Like, it's the worst thing that came out of the United States. The other things is George W. Bush, which I kind of can agree. You know, like, he wasn't a good president when it came to stability and world peace. But then it's like the guns. I just want to understand. It's like, you're talking about the nation that used to have every single peasant be forced, like not an option. No, like, he was forced to train with a longbow. So, like, a nation where every single person was armed is now criticizing another nation which pretty much took the same spirit. It's also interesting. When you look at guns, like, Switzerland has guns, and yet it doesn't have the same crime rates. And then when you look at the United Kingdom, they don't have guns, but they have a stabbing epidemic. And on top of that, you also get to arrest people that shouldn't be in prison. Like, last year alone, we had the guy, I didn't mention it on my Year in Stupid, but I should have, a guy that got arrested for having a Zelda toy. Like, it was a small sword toy that he had, a fidget spinner that looked like a Zelda sword, and you arrested that guy. Like, I'm sorry, I would rather live in a society where guns are legal than in a society where people are this insane. This is like, when you read this news, it just doesn't strike how fucked up it is until you just sit and you think about it a little bit more, right? So imagine you're going outside and you're playing with a toy that you think is harmless, and then you get arrested. Or worse yet, imagine your father, right? Like, your father goes outside, and then you find out that he is in prison. And he is locked up with actual criminals, like actual scum and dredges of society. And he's locked up with them. And then you wonder, okay, but like, what happens to his workplace? Like, his workplace finds out that he was arrested. He's probably getting fired. Like the damage you cause to a community with this level of shit is unbelievable. And so the question is, what exactly do British people view that is a good thing about the United States? And you gotta see here, like, number one, MLK. Number two, Barack Obama. Why do they dislike George Bush, but they like Barack Obama? Like, Barack Obama also had a very aggressive Middle Eastern policy. Also got America involved in a lot of foreign conflicts. What do they like about Barack Obama, but they hate about George Bush? Joe Biden, number three. Come on. Really? After you saw the presidential debate? After he was saying that he will run in the morning and at night his staffers find out from a Twitter post that he's not running anymore, kind of like a wife that breaks up with you via text. Hollywood movies? I mean, maybe the ones in the past, right? Because currently, I don't know of any movie that came out of Hollywood within the last 4 years that I can see myself watching with my son 10 years in the future. And then just like some famous people. It's shocking that they're not talking about inventions. They're not talking about the internet. They're not talking about like credit cards or anything like that. No, what's coming out of America that's really good is entertainment. It's not capitalism. Right? It's nothing that can actually improve your standard of living. It's Stephen King. Now, I don't know where the poll was conducted. Obviously, if you conduct it in London, you're going to get certain results that are different than if you conduct it in Birmingham. But my God, if this is like the actual British culture, like if this is genuinely what British people think, then I think they're going to go through some hard times. Take into account that you get the politicians you tolerate. And so, with this mindset, I think that they're going to get through some really hard times. The standard of living is going to drop. And more authoritarian measures are going to kick in. But it seems that they're happy with them, right? Like, they don't like guns. They don't like any of the stuff that Americans are doing. And so, what can I say? Good luck. Let me know what you guys think. And as usual, I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.